Hi everyone, we have here today Chris Ewing from AWS, engineer manager, right?
Yeah.
And with more than 20 years of experience as an engineer and educator. Chris, welcome to Pycon Colombia.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here.
So let's start this conversation. According to your LinkedIn profile, your bachelor is in music theory and composition, right?
True, yeah.
Can you-
Actually, bachelor and master's.
Wow.
Yeah.
In the same university?
No, two different ones. I went to the University of Iowa for my bachelor's and then moved to Illinois for my master's degree.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And from music theory to engineering, how you got into engineering?
Well, it's funny. I started out in music and was very interested in building a career in music. And I got my bachelor's degree. I traveled overseas to study for a while. I came back and got a master's degree. I actually moved to Seattle, where I live now, to pursue a doctorate at the university there. And as I was getting to the end of my studies for my doctorate, I began to look ahead at the life that was coming and what it would be like. And I had friends who were married, as I had just become. I just married my wife, and they were trying to become professors. They were trying to be in music professionally, and the life was very difficult. For many of them, they were separated. So even though they were married, the two of them were working in different places from each other, and so they would only be able to get together a few times a year on holidays.
That's tough.
It was, and it was not the life I wanted. I looked and I thought to myself, well, I've spent a long time doing this. I was, I think, about 32 or 33 at the time. And given all of this time that I've spent, can I really give it up? And I thought to myself, well, what other skills do I have? What things can I do? And as a musician, there weren't many because I spent all of my time practicing and playing music. So I knew how to do that. I knew how to wait tables at a restaurant and how to cook, because I'd spent a number of years doing that to pay for school. But the one thing that I had picked up was building websites for like the department that I was working for, and also some minor programming, because I'd begun to use programming to build some of the music that I was making.
Like a hobby?
No, it was actually part of my studies, was using computers to make music, programming different ways in order to change the sound and to control how fast or slow it went and things like that. And when I looked out at the world and the things that I might start to do, it seemed like this programming thing was the most beneficial way for me to make a living and to get out into the world. So I took a job with the University of Washington it was about 80% of the job was connecting electronics gear together to do teleconferencing. Mm-hmm. But I knew how to connect electronics and debug them because I'd done that for music for years. And a small portion of the job was for building a website. And I just focused on that part and learned how to do that part and kind of stretched that part of the work out until it became all of my job.
Nice.
And that was the transition. It's how I ended up being an engineer.
Nice. Many of us, I include myself, that I started playing around with websites, and that got me into engineering.
Yeah, I think it's a nice path because there's that immediate return, right? You build something, you see it, you can tell when it's wrong. It was a very clean way to start. Yeah.
And as a musician, do you think, or as an artist, are there any skills that you could move from that area, like soft skills?
So
maybe?
Yeah, I think definitely. Actually, the whole talk that I'm going to give here is about that, about lessons that I learned when I was a musician that I still use today. And some of them are soft skills, but some of them are kind of technical too.
Oh,
I
really?
think, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of what I learned as a musician applies to engineering in very interesting ways. The way I learned how to practice as a musician was all about breaking large, difficult pieces of music into small pieces and perfecting those small pieces. And I think as an engineer, when I work on a project that's large and has many parts to it, I have to break it apart, and I have to work on each of those pieces individually from each other, and then learn how to put them back together. I think my work as a musician practicing helped me to understand that would apply here, that I could
Wow.
use that same skill as an
Similar.
engineer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. I'm looking forward to see that keynote tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to giving it. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while because I think it's true that there are many places you can learn lessons that will help you as an engineer. And I think if we all look back at our lives, there are things that we have done or interests that we've had, passions that we've pursued that hold important lessons that we can bring to our engineering. And if we do that, it makes us better. So I'm excited to have a chance to talk about it.
Nice. And are you currently active as a musician, or are you already?
Barely, a little bit. I sing still. Sometimes I play a little bit, but not very much. Once I had kids, children became my hobby, and raising them took a lot of energy. So I was not able to stay engaged with music the way that I wanted to. But my children are growing now and about to leave the house. One of them will graduate high school in 7 days,
Wow.
1 week from today, and the other one is only a couple of years behind. And I start to think about the time that I have that will come back to me since they are moving on. And I think I will get back to it.
To practicing instruments?
Yeah, and to playing again. I miss it. I miss playing with other people. I miss the joy that comes from when you play a piece of music with more than one person and it syncs up well and you're playing together really tightly.
Are you bond?
There's an emotional bond there that is there's not very much else that can give you that same feeling. And I miss it. So I think I will go back. I've learned a bunch of other instruments, but I think when I go back to playing, I'll probably pick the trumpet back up again. It's kind of like how Python is the language I've worked in professionally for so long. It's a native tongue to me. I speak Python without thinking about it.
All right.
And I think the trumpet will be the same way. I haven't played it in, maybe 30 years.
Wow.
But when I go back to it, I know that it will be there and that I will remember how to make it work correctly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool, like riding a bicycle.
Yeah. I think once you pass a certain level with some skills, I think that skill sticks with you and you can hold on to it even if you don't practice it for a while.
Nice.
We'll find out. I don't know whether that's true, but I'm hoping it's true.
Let's move to a technical conversation now.
Yeah.
Since 2006, you have been involved with Plum.
Yeah.
And you serve on the board of directors of Plum Foundation.
Yep.
What did you find interesting in the Plum projects?
So, Plone, I first began using it because it was the right tool for the job that I was doing at the time. I was building a website for a radiology department at the University of Washington, and so they needed to be able to have pictures mixed in with their text, and lots of pictures, because radiology is all about images and looking at those images and talking about them. So when we looked at the landscape of different tools that were available, Plone was the one that had the best native support for embedding images into text and making it look good. This was, a long while ago. But what kept me with Plone after I began using it was the community. That I found that it was the first Python that I had written when I started working with Plone, but IRC channel and conversations with people, everyone was friendly and they were really helpful. And when I asked questions, they didn't make me feel stupid. They answered them and they would help me learn things beyond just what I was asking. You've asked this and here's the answer to your question, but the next thing you're going to learn is this, and here's some more information you should know. They were really very, very friendly and oriented around community. And I grew up in a family that believed in community and working with other people, and so it felt good to me to be in that community and to share with them. And that's, yeah, I think that's really what kept me, was how tremendously powerful that bond becomes. It's interesting. I think Plone as a software package is probably not as widely used as it once was. But the people who use it and the people who work on it still get together every year for a conference.
Wow.
And they still find ways to talk about it, and they still get together for sprints to work on things. And it's not so much about the software anymore as it is about getting together with friends and working on things that you love to do with people that you love being with.
Why do you think that the trend of using Plone has decreased?
Well, I think Plone is a content management system, right? And there was a time when content management was the big thing that everybody wanted to do with their websites. And so the time of the CMS was powerful. There were many different solutions to that problem, but it's not really the space that most people are working in anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, web applications and interactive experiences, things like that, are a little bit more prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the work that's being done these days has moved away from the wheelhouse that
mm-hmm.
that Plone works in. Yeah.
You told me you got engaged with the community, right?
Yeah.
As a member.
Yeah.
And then how did you move from member to volunteer and being part of the board of the
Well,
directors?
so I think part of that comes from, as I was saying, from my history. My mother and my father both were very involved in their own communities and in volunteering for work that needed to be done in order to keep those communities vibrant and active. So I learned from them the importance of that kind of work, but also as time went along, well, I'll put it this way. There was a point in my career when I thought I was going to go in a particular direction, and I left the university and the job that I had there and the health insurance that I had there
Wow.
to go into business with another person. And the day after I left my job and had separated from all of the support that a long-running job in insurance and all of that has, this person decided that they did not want to go into business. And so I found myself without any support. And I had 2 children. They were young. I had a wife who at the time was not very healthy mm-hmm. and had a lot of needs for medical support. And I was terrified. It was a very scary time. And I tweeted, because I had just joined Twitter at the time, I tweeted that it was amazing how fast things could fall apart. And within about 20 minutes of sending that tweet, 5 different people from the Plone community had reached out to me and asked me what was going on, and 2 people had offered me work to help.
Really?
Yeah, so within maybe an hour or an hour and a half of all of this going bad, there were people who were reaching out and supporting me and holding me up. And that is a debt, I think, that you have to repay. When a community carries you like that, I think it's really important to acknowledge that debt and to pay it forward. And so I tried to find every way that I could to help pay that back to the community and to give back to them in any way that I could. So I started by working with the foundation. It was a secretary job, so I took notes during the meetings, and then later when an opportunity came to run one of the conferences, I stepped up and did that. And then later I took on a role helping to organize their participation in the Google Summer of Code. So working to make sure developers had come up with ideas for projects and then aligning students with those projects and keeping track of the work that they were doing over time. Just any chance I could get to help out was something that I felt I owed them, but I also felt good doing.
Nice, nice. So many people think that they have to be like a superstar with super skills to become active.
I
But
don't think that's true. And I think, there was a talk at a Pycon a year before the one that I gave. It was given by Jacob Kaplan Moss, who's a member of Django. I think he was one of
the
the
creators.
creators of Django, and he gave this wonderful talk about how in software we tend to think of software as a bimodal distribution of skills. Everybody is either a rock star or they're terrible, right? But he said in software development, as with everything else, it's really a bell curve. There are very few people who are really, really excellent. There are very few people who probably should find something else to do. And then the rest of us are average. We sit in the middle somewhere. But that's okay, right? We all have skills, we all have abilities, we all have special things that we bring to the table. And even if our own skills are only average, the other things that we bring, the uniqueness of us, is something that makes it important that we are there.
From a career point of view,
Yeah.
you are an engineering manager at AWS.
Yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of software developers dream to work at AWS. So what advice would you give to anyone who wants to work in a big tech company?
So I think the first piece of advice that I would give to you is go for it. Don't be afraid.
Don't think the bimodal.
Exactly, exactly, right? It's not a bimodal distribution. I work with a lot of engineers, and I have engineers all around me at AWS, and some of them are, without a doubt, great, really tremendous engineers. But most of them are average. They have their strengths, they have their weaknesses, they have things that they are very good at and other things that they are not so good at. And they're just like the rest of us. It's like when you go to your first Pycon and you see Guido, right? And you think,
oh my God,
I'm afraid I can't go over and talk to him, right? Because he was the creator, right? The BDFL. But the truth is, he's just a guy. And he's a nice person, like all of us are, right? You belong there, I think, is probably the first advice I would give. The second piece of advice I would give is know what you're getting into. A big company like AWS or Microsoft or Google, large companies like that work differently than small companies, startups or niche companies that have 20 or 30 or 50 engineers that work for them.
How different?
Very, very different. So in what way different? I think engineering and the problems of engineering change not only with the scale of the technology that you're creating, but also with the scale of the teams that are working. I think the hardest problem to solve at a really big company like AWS is how to coordinate all of the work that all of these hundreds of different teams are doing to reach the right goals and to make sure that you are getting to the place that you want to be. So when you go to work for a really big company like AWS, communication and the way you talk about the work that you're doing, who you talk about it with, how you advertise risk, problems that are coming up, all of those things become really, really important. And maybe I think more important than they tend to be at smaller companies. At smaller companies, you sit next to all the people that you work with. If there's a problem, somebody hears you yelling at your computer screen and they know about it, right? But I work with teams that are in South Africa or Ireland or South America or all over the world, right? And none of them hear me screaming when something's going bad for my team. So I have to learn how to send those signals to the right places so that the people who need to know will be able to find out. It's a big difference, and it's something that you should be aware of. Like, I think probably most of my engineers spend maybe 40% of their time actually engineering, and the rest of their time communicating about their engineering with other people.
And planning, I guess.
Planning and reporting, write-ups, design discussions, talking with other teams who have software that might be affected by the changes that we're planning on making. It's a very high communication load. And so if you want to work at a company like that, you belong there, you should. But be aware that your engineering skills alone are not what will carry you through that job. You'll need to be able to communicate really, really well and understand how important that communication is in your job.
Okay, so you have to align yourself with what the company is looking
I mean,
for.
in any job, you have to align yourself, but it's important to understand that at large companies like that, the alignment is a little different than it can be with smaller companies.
Talking about a developer's life is like a roller coaster.
Oh God.
Sometimes there are achievements, sometimes there are failures.
Yeah.
Could you tell us which ones do you think are the biggest achievements and the biggest failures as a software engineer, in your opinion?
I always used to say to engineers who joined my team that you haven't really become a software engineer until you leave a server a smoking ruin, right?
Right.
Until you've really messed something up badly. The story I like to tell is I spent a number of years working as a contractor, so going and selling my services to other companies or individual customers. and one job that I had, I was working for a company in the United States that was building a website for all of the healthcare systems for the University of Virginia. And so hospitals and medical clinics and things like that. And they came to me with a job that they needed to get done. The job was a very simple one. We need to take all of the web pages in all of the websites that we have, and we need to transform all of the elements on those web pages that are H2 to H3, right?
Okay.
So
right.
That's it. Like find all of them, parse the HTML, find the H3s or H2s and change them to H3s, right? Which seems simple enough. It's not a terribly difficult job. But what I didn't know at the time that I did it was that Plone, which was the site, the system we were working in, has two ways to read the content of a web page. One of them is the way that you should access the content if you want to deal with it programmatically. The other way is the way that you access the content when you're getting ready to render it onto a page for viewing. And the big difference between those is that the one for rendering takes all of the internal link references that are in a special kind of reference code in the HTML and transforms them into URLs.
Okay.
So that those URLs become links when you post them on the site. Well, I used the wrong one. I used that one. And so when I read the content, it transformed all the content into URLs that were local to my desktop. So https://localhost. And then I wrote the content back. And so after the script had run and had transformed all of the links for all of the websites across the entire University of Virginia healthcare system, all pointed to localhost. So every link in all of their web pages was broken. And people would click on it and nothing would happen because there is no localhost, right? They'd get 404s. And it was a terrible disaster. Like maybe 15 minutes after the script finished running, we started getting the first panicked calls from the people who ran the website. And maybe 5 minutes after that, it was very clear to me that it was my work that had caused this problem. And it was terrifying, right? I'd only been working for this company for a very short while. This was maybe the third job that I'd done for them. And I had to raise my hand in IRC and say to the people who were looking into the problem, that's me. I did that. I'm really, really sorry, but I know what happened and I know why it happened. And the CEO got on a call with me and said, "You will fix this, and we're not going to pay you for the time that you spend fixing it." But I had to go back and write a script that reestablished all those links correctly, which took me about 6 hours to do.
6 hours.
Yeah, because I had to figure out how to take the paths that were the later part of the URL, figure out how to reference those back and discover the original content ID that was in the internal reference. It took me a while to come up with a solution that actually solved the problem.
Wow.
But it was a big mistake. And actually, there's a lesson from music that covers this. When I was a musician, I went to audition for colleges, and I went to audition for what's the name of it? It was a music school that was in Boston, and I went to go audition for it. And the people who were in the room to listen to me audition were all like the principal trumpet player for the Boston Symphony Orchestra, very big names, people that I knew by name and that I had listened to for years. And I panicked, and I played a terrible audition. And when I left, I was in tears. It was the worst I'd ever played since I was like 2. I don't know. It was awful. But then the next day I woke up and I was still alive. And although I was not going to get into that school, I had other auditions and I was going to play in other places. I realized that I could make a terrible, terrible mistake and survive it. And that same lesson applied for this particular instance, right? I'd made a mistake, I'd done something awful, I'd broken the world, but I was able to put it back, and I could still show up for work the next day and hold my head high. So yeah, it's a lot easier to talk about mistakes than it is to talk about successes. I can't think honestly of very many things that I've done that I would consider to be great successes, although I've done reasonably well in my career, and I've reached places that are far beyond what I would have imagined. I could never have imagined that I would work for AWS, but here I am. It's a lot easier for me to talk about the ways that I've made mistakes,
All right.
because those are the ones that haunt me.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers?
I think the only thing that I want to share is I have spent a long time fighting against imposter syndrome because I don't come from a software background, right? I first made code professionally when I was 34. I'd had a long life ahead of that doing something completely different. And so for a long, long time, I felt like I must be missing things. There must be information that other people had because they'd gone to a CS program or they'd been working in engineering for 10 years or something that I didn't have. And so I held back and I did not speak up. And even if I thought we were making a mistake in the direction that we were going, I wouldn't say it because I felt like my opinion couldn't possibly be correct. But as it turned out, your opinions are valuable, even if they're not correct. Sometimes the questions that you ask help people who know more than you to look at a problem from a different direction. And that kind of perspective is really important for people who have been doing a thing for a long time, because when you've been doing something for a long time, you get a routine.
You get in the box.
Exactly. You climb inside that box and you begin to believe that that's where everything is. But if you have somebody who can come and look at that box from a different direction and say, but wait, there's the bottom, or there's these sides, you haven't looked at those things, it really is valuable and important. So I would say that what I'd like to carry out to people who are listening to this is that the things that you know, even if you don't think of them as being as important or as valuable as the things that someone else might know, they are. And everything that you bring to the table when you do the work that you do is important and becomes a part of a whole. And without all of those parts, the whole is less than it might otherwise be.
Like a member of a band.
Yes.
Musicians.
Yeah,
Right.
like a member of a band. If you don't have the bass player, there's a big hole there. There's a missing piece, and all of those pieces are important. So step in and play your role. Join up with some group of people who are trying to accomplish something and become a part of that. And you'll feel great for it. You'll get a rush from the things that you help to solve, and the rest of the team that you join will benefit from you being there. I promise you that that's how it works, even if it doesn't feel that way.
That's a great advice. Thank you, Chris, for your time here.
Oh, thanks very much.
I hope you keep having an excellent time here at Pycon Colombia. And to our viewers, thank you for watching us, and we'll keep uploading content in this channel. So see you later. Bye.
Bye.